Let's rewind the clock to the wild years of the 1980s. Imagine a creature stepping onto a stage bathed in blood-red light. Crazed eyes locked onto the crowd, hair hanging in disarray, and then in one horrifying moment, he lifts a live bat to his mouth and bites its head clean off as tens of thousands scream in shock. That man was Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness, a figure many regarded as the embodiment of evil, the mastermind behind occult rituals, pigeon head-biting scandals, and songs accused of encouraging young people to take their own lives. At the time, the world recoiled in fear. Parents were horrified, politicians publicly condemned him, and religious organizations organized protests, burned his records, and distributed flyers branding Ozzy as public enemy number one. They shouted, they wept, and they issued their strongest warnings in an effort to protect their children from this supposed destroyer of morality. Looking back, we can see that society was right to sound the alarm, but they were warning people about the wrong thing. What our generation truly missed, what we completely overlooked, was not the outdated fear of overly zealous parents. It was the prophetic warnings hidden beneath the dark and unsettling melodies of Ozzy Osbourne's music, warnings that were decades ahead of their time. They said he was the monster lurking under the bed. Yet it turned out he was perhaps the only prophet willing to stare directly into the madness of the modern world. At the height of the satanic panic that swept across the United States and Britain, Ozzy Osbourne's name seemed like a weapon of mass destruction aimed at traditional family values. The crusade against him reached its peak in court, where he faced a fierce legal battle over the song Suicide Solution. Grieving parents filed lawsuits, claiming that the song's eerie whispers and hidden audio frequencies had encouraged teenagers to end their lives. They painted a terrifying picture. Ozzy was a satanic cult leader using music as a spell to lure young people toward death. Yet the more politicians and parents tried to ban him, the more young people embraced him. Fans responded with little more than a defiant smirk. They transformed Ozzy into the ultimate rebel icon. Records were burned publicly. Young fans quietly bought twice as many. Protesters handing out anti-Ozzy leaflets outside arenas unintentionally created the greatest free advertising campaign imaginable, sending concert tickets into instant sellout territory. To a generation hungry for freedom, society's warnings felt like nothing more than the outdated fears of an aging establishment incapable of understanding the times. They were so busy turning Ozzy into a symbol of resistance against their parents that they failed to realize their idol was actually shouting urgent warnings about humanity's future. While crowds were either condemning or worshipping his outrageous public antics, they completely missed one crucial truth. The man labeled as evil was actually holding a prophetic text about humanity's self-destruction. Behind the crushing guitar riffs of Black Sabbath and the screams of Ozzy's solo career lay warnings so profound that only the 21st century would fully reveal how accurate they were. While schools and media outlets work to shape young people into model citizens and paint a rosy picture of the future, Ozzy's music stripped away the illusion and exposed humanity's darkest flaws. He was not a destroyer of morality. He was a prophet who saw the future through the dark lens of music. Warning about war and politics, war pigs. Society feared Ozzy would corrupt young people with rebellion, yet it ignored the message of the classic song War Pigs. In that track, Ozzy was not glorifying evil. He used the image of war pigs to expose politicians and powerful figures who sat comfortably behind closed doors, playing geopolitical games while sending millions of poor young men to die on battlefields. Ozzy sang about the cruelty of war while lawmakers accused him of being a threat to peace. Warning about environmental destruction, Electric Funeral, Iron Man. Listen again to Electric Funeral or the story of Iron Man, a man who travels into the future, witnesses Earth's apocalypse and returns to warn humanity, only to be mocked and isolated. It was a dark vision, frighteningly accurate in hindsight, of a world ravaged by uncontrolled technology, nuclear devastation, and environmental collapse. What Ozzy was screaming about in the 1970s has become part of the harsh reality humanity faces today. Warning about mental health and isolation, Paranoid, Diary of a Madman. Long before the modern world normalized discussions about mental health and established crisis hotlines, Ozzy was confronting those issues head-on. Through songs like Paranoid and Diary of a Madman, he sang about depression, madness, crippling anxiety, and the feeling of being trapped inside one's own mind. Society dismissed those songs as bizarre and dangerous. Yet today, mental health crises and loneliness have become silent epidemics affecting young people across the globe. But the irony did not stop there. After spending decades being portrayed as one of the greatest threats to civilization, Ozzy Osbourne pulled off one of the greatest image reversals in television history in 2002, a twist that stunned both his critics and his fans. That year, MTV launched The Osbournes, a reality television series documenting everyday life inside Ozzy's mansion. The world watched, expecting to witness dark rituals and chaotic excess. Instead, they got something entirely different. The violent Prince of Darkness turned out to be an aging man shuffling around in pajamas. The same man who had once bitten the head off a bat could barely figure out how to operate a television remote. The supposed corrupter of youth was actually a husband constantly being bossed around by Sharon, a father teased by his children, and a bewildered dog owner trying to clean up messes left behind by the family pets. This revelation completely shattered the demonic image that media outlets and religious groups had spent 20 years constructing. The greatest threat to civilization turned out to be a vulnerable man struggling with neurological damage caused by years of substance abuse and simply trying to make it through each day. The danger and darkness had largely been part of a performance, a brilliantly executed piece of entertainment theatre. Ozzy evolved into a beloved grandfatherly figure, admired for his awkwardness and authenticity, leaving many former critics wondering, had they really been terrified of a man like this? As the fog surrounding reality television and sensational accusations slowly faded, Ozzy Osbourne entered the final chapter of his life, a period when people no longer saw him as either a joke or a menace, but as one of history's greatest survivors. Looking back now, a difficult question remains. Despite every curse, every scandal, and a lifestyle that often seemed bent on self-destruction, why is Ozzy Osbourne still here? For decades, the amount of alcohol, prescription drugs, and other substances he consumed was said to be enough to kill an elephant. People openly placed bets on when he would finally collapse. Yet Ozzy never died. His biological resilience proved so extraordinary that in the 2010s, scientists at the genetics company Gnome decided to sequence his entire genome. The results stunned the medical community. Ozzy appeared to possess rare genetic variations that may have enabled his body to process and tolerate toxins far differently from the average person. Scientists described him as a biological anomaly, a man seemingly engineered by nature to survive disasters of his own making. While Ozzy continued to survive like an immortal monument, the consequences of humanity's refusal to listen became painfully visible before our eyes. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, society wasted an enormous amount of energy fighting the wrong battle. Parents confiscated skeleton print t-shirts, radio stations banned Black Sabbath songs, and authorities staged court cases to prove that music could kill. They became obsessed with attacking the sensational image on the surface while remaining completely deaf to the deeper warnings, the painful truths Ozzy had been screaming about in his songs all along. And the price of that arrogance and prejudice is the reality of the 21st century, a world unfolding almost exactly according to Black Sabbath's darkest predictions. The modern-day war pigs, society feared Ozzy would corrupt young people, yet ignored his warnings about cycles of conflict and manipulation. Rather than moving toward peace, powerful interests continue to push generations of young people into meaningless confrontations, turning human lives into tools that serve political and economic agendas. The spectre of an electric funeral. The warning about technological apocalypse has never felt more relevant. We now face the consequences of energy risks, extreme climate change, and ecosystems devastated by humanity's endless pursuit of profit. The mental health crisis called Paranoid. Long before social media existed, Ozzy was already singing about profound isolation. Today, millions of young people silently struggle with anxiety, emotional emptiness, and a sense of disconnection. echoing the troubled thoughts captured in Diary of a Madman. Society spent decades searching for a fictional devil on stage, while lowering its guard against the real demons of greed, war, and indifference that were destroying the world outside. Ozzy Osbourne was never the creator of darkness. He was simply one of the few people willing to stand inside that darkness and show us how the world was slowly destroying itself. The story of Ozzy Osbourne and his music leaves us with a powerful lesson about how we judge the world. Never judge a book solely by its strange cover, and sometimes the most honest truths come from the people society is quickest to dismiss as insane. If we could turn back time, would society have chosen to listen to the messages hidden within Ozzy's music instead of obsessively trying to silence him? And which of his songs do you think proved to be the most prophetic about the world we live in today? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this analysis and found it thought-provoking, don't forget to like, share this video with fellow music enthusiasts, and most importantly, subscribe and turn on notifications. Your support is what motivates us to continue uncovering hidden stories and exploring the untold sides of the world's greatest music legends. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again in our next documentary feature.